The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and warm cinnamon rolls, a ritual Evelyn had perfected over decades in her modest suburban Chicago home. At 71, her hands moved with the muscle memory of a lifetime spent nurturing. First her late husband, Tom, then her daughter, Sarah, and now, it seemed, Sarah's entire family. The rolls were for Sarah and her husband, Jake, who were due to visit later that morning. Evelyn had already set aside $1,200 for their monthly mortgage payment, a habit that had drained her savings but felt like love. For 5 years, she had been their silent benefactor, pouring over $40,000 into their lives. Mortgage payments, private school tuition for her grandkids, even bailing out Jake's failed tech startup. It was what mothers did, she told herself. It was what grandmothers did. Evelyn adjusted the lace table runner, a wedding gift from Tom's mother, and checked her phone. No messages from Sarah, but that wasn't unusual. Sarah only called when she needed something: a new iPad for the kids, grocery money, or, most recently, $2,000 for Jake's next big idea. Evelyn sighed, her reflection catching in the glass cabinet. Her gray hair was neatly pinned, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion, the kind that came from giving too much for too long. She pushed the thought away and dialed Sarah's number, eager to confirm details about the vow renewal ceremony she had heard about. Sarah and Jake had been married for 10 years, and Evelyn had been thrilled when they mentioned renewing their vows in Hawaii. She had already bought a pale blue dress, $300 from Nordstrom, imagining herself beaming in photos with her grandkids, Lily and Noah, on a sandy beach. Sarah answered on the third ring. Her voice clipped. "Mom, we're kind of busy. What's up?" Evelyn's heart sank, but she pressed on. "I was just wondering about the vow renewal. When's the date? I need to book my flight." There was a pause, too long, and then Sarah's voice, sharp as a winter wind. "Oh, Mom, it's already done. We had it yesterday. It was just for special people, close family and friends." The words landed like a bucket of ice water. Special people. Evelyn gripped the phone, her knuckles whitening. She stood in her kitchen, surrounded by the cinnamon rolls she'd baked for them, the table runner she'd ironed for their visit, and the weight of 5 years of sacrifices. Special people. She, who had paid their $1,200 mortgage every month, who had covered $15,000 in tuition for Lily and Noah, who had wired $10,000 to save Jake's startup from collapse. She was not a special person. "Mom, you there?" Sarah's voice was impatient now, as if Evelyn's silence was an inconvenience. Evelyn forced words out, her voice trembling. "You didn't invite me?" "It was intimate, Mom. Just us, the kids, and a few friends. Jake's parents were there, his sister, the core group. We didn't want a big thing." She'd been excluded from the most important moment in her daughter's life. Later that evening, Evelyn opened her laptop, her hands shaking as she logged into Facebook. There they were, photos from the vow renewal. Sarah in a flowing white dress, Jake grinning in a linen suit, Lily and Noah tossing flower petals. Jake's parents, Carol and Mike, posed proudly beside the couple, champagne flutes in hand. His sister, Emily, was there too, laughing in a coral sundress. The caption read, "Blessed to renew our love surrounded by those who matter most." Evelyn scrolled through the album, each photo a fresh wound. She recognized the $800 necklace Sarah wore. She'd given Sarah the money for it last month, thinking it was for wedding expenses. The realization hit her. Every dollar she'd given had helped create this moment she wasn't allowed to share. For days, Evelyn moved through her house like a ghost. She didn't bake, didn't call Sarah, didn't check her phone for messages. The silence was deafening, but it gave her space to think. She sat at her dining table, the same one where she'd written checks for Sarah and Jake, and pulled out her bank statements. The numbers stared back at her. $1,200 a month for 60 months, $72,000. Tuition payments, $15,000. Jake's startup, $10,000. Miscellaneous gifts, iPads, vacations, car repairs, another $8,000. Over $105,000 in 5 years taken from her retirement fund, her late husband's life insurance, her own modest pension. All for a family that didn't consider her special. A week later, her phone rang. It was Jake, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "Evelyn, hey, we're in a bind. The mortgage is overdue and the bank's threatening foreclosure. You forgot to send the payment this month. Can you help us out? It's just $1,200. Evelyn's grip tightened on the phone. Forgot? She hadn't forgotten. For the first time in 5 years, she'd chosen not to send the money. She took a deep breath, her voice steady. "Jake, I only help special people." The silence on the other end was thick, broken only by Jake's stammer. "What? Evelyn, come on, you know we're family. We're struggling here."
Family? Evelyn's voice rose, surprising even herself. Family doesn't exclude their own mother from a vow renewal. Family doesn't take $100,000 and then call me for more like I'm a bank. Jake tried to interrupt, but Evelyn hung up. Her hands shook, not with fear, but with a fire she hadn't felt in years. She wasn't just angry, she was awake. For too long, she'd equated love with money, believing her sacrifices would earn her a place in Sarah's life. Now she saw the truth. She'd been a resource, not a mother. The next morning, Evelyn woke with a clarity she hadn't known since Tom's death. She looked in the mirror, seeing not just the wrinkles and gray hair, but a woman who'd survived loss, raised a daughter alone, and worked 30 years as a nurse to build a life. That woman deserved better. She made coffee, sat at her table, and began to plan. No more automatic transfers, no more canceled plans to save money for Sarah's family, no more living for others. At the bank, Evelyn met with her longtime banker, Mr. Patel, who'd processed every transfer to Sarah and Jake. His eyebrows rose when she asked to cancel the automatic payments. "Are you sure, Mrs. Thompson? You've been so consistent." "I'm sure," Evelyn said, her voice firm. "I'm also closing the joint account Sarah has access to. I want my money protected." Mr. Patel hesitated, then nodded. "I've seen how much you've done for them. If I may say, you've been very generous." Generous. The word felt like a euphemism for foolish. Evelyn smiled tightly. "Too generous, Mr. Patel. That ends today." As she left the bank, her phone buzzed incessantly. Sarah, Jake, Sarah again. She ignored the calls, turned off her phone, and drove to the lakefront. For the first time in years, she walked without purpose, watching the waves crash against the shore. She thought of Sarah as a child, clinging to her hand at this very lake, promising to be her best friend forever. When had that child become a woman who saw her mother as a checkbook? 2 days later, Evelyn returned home to find Sarah's car in her driveway, along with Jake's and a sleek black sedan she didn't recognize. Her stomach tightened. She'd given Sarah a key years ago, trusting her daughter to respect her home. Now she regretted that trust. Taking a deep breath, she opened her front door. The scene inside was chaos. Sarah sat on the couch, her face red from crying. Jake paced, his phone pressed to his ear. A man in a pinstripe suit stood at her dining table, flipping through her bank statements, her private documents. Her blood ran cold. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the room. Sarah jumped up, her voice trembling but calculated. "Mom, thank God you're here. We need to talk. This is Mr. Reynolds, our attorney. We're worried about you." "Worried?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed, landing on the stranger. "You're going through my papers without permission? Get out." Mr. Reynolds, unruffled, extended a hand. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm a family law attorney. Your daughter and son-in-law are concerned about your mental well-being. They've asked me to evaluate your capacity to manage your finances." Evelyn ignored his hand, grabbing her bank statements from the table.
My capacity? I've managed my finances for 40 years, raised a daughter alone, and paid for their entire life while they treated me like a stranger. Sarah's tears vanished, replaced with a flash of anger. Mom, you're being irrational. You stopped the mortgage payments out of nowhere. You're not answering our calls. We think you're confused. Maybe it's dementia. The word hit Evelyn like a slap. Dementia. They weren't just after her money, they wanted to control her life. She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Confused? The only confusion was thinking my love could be bought with checks. Jake stepped forward, his tone patronizing. Evelyn, we're family. We're just trying to protect you. The bank told us you canceled everything. That's not normal. Normal? What's not normal is taking $100,000 from your mother and then excluding her from your vow renewal. What's not normal is breaking into her home and digging through her papers. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat. Mrs. Thompson, your family has documented concerning behaviors, sudden financial decisions, social withdrawal. We've prepared a power of attorney to let Sarah and Jake manage your affairs temporarily. Evelyn's eyes locked on the folder in his hand. She took it, flipped it open, and then tossed it into the trash. The only thing temporary is your presence in my house. Get out, all of you. Sarah's face crumpled into a performance of distress. Mom, we can't afford the house without you. We took out loans because we knew you'd help. You can't just abandon us. Abandon you? Evelyn's voice was steel. You abandoned me when you left me out of your life. You don't get to demand my money and my love while giving nothing back. Mr. Reynolds packed his briefcase with a tight smile. Mrs. Thompson, this isn't over. If your family believes you're incapacitated, a court can appoint a guardian. The threat hung in the air, but Evelyn stood taller. Do what you must, Mr. Reynolds, but I've managed my life for 71 years. I'm not the one who needs help. Sarah stormed out, Jake trailing her, muttering about fixing this. Mr. Reynolds followed, leaving Evelyn in the silence of her home. She locked the door, her hands steady now. That night, she didn't cry. Instead, she felt a spark of something new, resolve. The next morning, Evelyn called an old friend, Laura, a retired attorney who specialized in elder law. Over coffee at a cozy Evanston cafe, Evelyn poured out the story. The money, the vow renewal, the lawyer in her home. Laura's face hardened. This is elder financial abuse, Evelyn. It's not just manipulative, it's illegal. We need to protect you. Laura referred Evelyn to Miss Karen Walsh, a Chicago elder law expert with a reputation for fierce advocacy. In Miss Walsh's sleek downtown office, Evelyn laid out everything. The $105,000 in payments, the uninvited vow renewal, the intrusion into her home. Miss Walsh's pen flew across her notepad. We'll document every transaction, every instance of coercion. We'll change your will to protect your assets and file a restraining order if they try another stunt like yesterday. And we'll countersue for financial abuse if they push for guardianship. Evelyn spent hours with Miss Walsh combing through bank records. The totals were staggering. $72,000 in mortgage payments, $15,000 in tuition, $10,000 for Jake's startup, $8,000 in miscellaneous expenses. You could have bought a condo in Florida with this, Miss Walsh said, shaking her head. Instead, you funded their lifestyle while they disrespected you. The words stung, but they also freed Evelyn. She wasn't the fool. She was the victim of calculated exploitation. That afternoon, she hired a locksmith to change every lock on her house. She ordered a security system with cameras, ensuring no one could enter uninvited again. She opened a new bank account at a different bank, one Sarah and Jake had never heard of. And she called a travel agent, booking a Caribbean cruise for the spring, her first vacation in a decade, paid for with her own money. Sarah and Jake didn't stop. They called daily, leaving voicemails that swung from pleading to threatening. "Mom, we're losing the house," Sarah sobbed in one. "You're ruining our lives," Jake snapped in another. Evelyn saved every message as evidence, per Miss Walsh's advice. When a process server arrived with papers for a guardianship hearing, Evelyn was ready. Miss Walsh filed a countersuit, alleging elder financial abuse and trespassing, backed by bank records, voicemails, and security footage from the day they'd invaded her home. The court date arrived 3 months later. Evelyn sat in the Chicago courtroom, her pale blue dress, the one meant for the vow renewal, tailored to fit her newfound strength. Sarah and Jake sat across the room, their lawyer arguing that Evelyn's sudden financial cutoff indicated mental instability. Miss Walsh dismantled their case, presenting the $105,000 in transfers as evidence of exploitation. "My client is a competent woman who chose to stop subsidizing ingratitude," Miss Walsh declared. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, agreed, dismissing the guardianship petition and warning Sarah and Jake of potential criminal charges if they continued their tactics. Evelyn walked out of the courthouse, the winter air crisp against her face. She felt lighter than she had in years. At home, she finalized her new will, leaving her estate to a Chicago Children's Hospital and a women's shelter. She reconnected with old friends, joined a book club, and started painting again, a hobby she'd abandoned when Sarah's demands took over. On her cruise, she stood on the deck, watching the turquoise waves, and realized she wasn't just a mother or grandmother, she was Evelyn, a woman with her own dreams. Sarah called once more, months later, her voice small. "Mom, can we talk? We miss you." She listened, then replied, "I miss the daughter I thought I had, but I'm done paying for love." She hung up, turned her phone off, and walked into her garden where she was planting roses for the first time in years. The silence wasn't lonely, it was hers.